Hello, my name is Erica Reed. I'm the marketing manager at the Center for Musical Arts, and this is the newest interview in our series talking to the different faculty members that we have on staff. Today, we are talking to Raouf Zaidan. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very glad to be chatting with you, Erica.
You know, I got a chance to see you perform recently. I was at our annual Crescendo event, and I got a chance to see you on the stage. And ever since, I've been really interested to talk to you. Can you tell me a little bit about your history with the center?
Yes, when I finished with my doctoral degree at CU Boulder, and I didn't want to leave Colorado because I love Colorado. I thought I heard about the new center in Lafayette, and I have this thing about community colleges as a place where real learning happens with music, and it's kind of away from the traditional way of that we teach music. And at the back of my mind, I thought, oh, maybe that could be a place I could work at. But I did go back to Egypt, and that's where I'm from. And when Peggy Brands said, Raouf, what about coming and forming a choir for us at Lafayette at it used to be called the Rocky Mountain Center for Musical Arts. And I jumped at it. I said, yes, I'm coming. I'd love to. And that was the beginning of my past student days in the United States. And it was my goal from the beginning that I wanted to settle here and become a citizen, So then I worked a couple of years at Lafayette, and then at the CMA now, and then I went on to be a professor in South Dakota and New York, went back to Egypt to take care of my mother, and now I'm back again where I wanted to be from the very beginning,
Oh my God, welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, Raouf, you say that the main focus of your career, and I want to quote this because I love this, is the area between your Egyptian cultural roots and international opera and music theater. Can you tell me about the ways that those intersect for you?
Yes, and I'm a very privileged person. I was very lucky. I had a British mother. I had an Egyptian father. Grew up in Egypt, which is a place of many cultures and many histories. And when I fell in love completely, passionately with music as a boy, as a pianist to begin with, and then realized that singing was going to call me strongly. I know that my father was very worried about this, and he said, it's not a career, singing is, what you hear from all parents when they care for their children, they think, and I told him, no, Dad, I have no choice. This is what I love, I want to do this particular thing. And his idea of opera was the old-fashioned Cairo Opera House, where you went to see Italian operas or French operas, and you wore, and it was for the upper classes, and it was, and I had a very completely different idea. My idea was, music is something that belongs to everybody, and this is why. It's a long story, really, but I ended up being the first person to do Mozart operas in Egyptian, in our language, including Figaro and Leporello and Papageno. In fact, that night I sang one verse of them, because I believe that when you sing opera, you're telling a story. When you're singing opera, you're connecting with your audience in their language. So in America, I love singing in English. And when I was in Vienna, German was perfect. Egypt, Arabic was great as well. So, but the point here is that you're not hiding behind, you're not singing just, no, you're actually telling a story. You're expressing true emotions in the language that your public will get, we hope.
So, Raouf, you have this incredible singing background. At the center, you're primarily teaching piano. Can you tell me what drew you to voice and piano as instruments?
Well, as a boy, and generally we begin with piano with children, and I was a child at that time in Egypt. A human voice begins to be trainable once you've passed puberty. So it was natural that I would start with piano, and I actually loved piano. And I had a teacher who was a Greek teacher. She was amazing. And she said, I told her once, I want to be a singer. And she said, work hard at piano, and one day you'll get to your singing. And I'll never forget that. And she had heard Maria Callas, the great opera singer in Greece. So she knew what she was talking about. And I gave myself heart and body and soul to piano and trained and worked hard. And I thought, and it did get me where I wanted, because when I went to London, I did joint piano and singing, and and everybody was happy. And it turns out that the Royal College of Music, one of the great institutions of the world, whatever instrument you do, your second instrument is always piano. And the reason is it's a wonderful instrument for grounding us, for teaching us the basics of music. It also teaches the discipline. You know, you have to work hard to be a pianist. You know, you have to. And sometimes people think singing is, you know, you just open your mouth and you sing. Well, no. If you've been through piano, you know that you have to train, you have to warm up, you have to learn how to do it perfectly. There are many skills you have to learn. So when they told me, they asked me this time, this is the need we have here. I'm going, great. It's where I started and where I would be glad to start many new people, many of these young people and adults if they want, to learn this amazing instrument, the piano, which is such a wonderful basis for other things. You know. But if I see somebody who is interested in singing coming in for a piano lesson, I'm going to think of little Raouf in Cairo when he said to his teacher, you know, I want to be a singer. And I'll probably say the same thing. Work hard at piano and we'll get you to the goal you have, you know.
Okay, so I like to ask about teaching philosophy, and I think you've touched on some pieces of this, including possibly storytelling. But is there anything else you'd like to say about how you approach your teaching philosophy?
I learned everything upside down as a child and as a grown. In other words, it was always, you know, why didn't they tell me that at the beginning? You know, a simple thing is a middle C. You know, it's a note that everybody assumes everybody knows what it is, or a dotted half note. How long is that? And I decided as a teacher that I was going to make sure that whenever I started with anybody, I made sure that they knew the simplest thing. And we go always from the known to the unknown, and always from the simple to the more complex. So, and it sounds boring what I'm saying here, but actually what I'm saying is you look at a child or a grown-up or the person who comes to learn from you, and you need to get to know them and understand what they know. Don't assume anything. You don't assume, oh, well, of course, if they're a bright child and 10-year-old, they know what middle C is. No, you check, you make sure, and you find out. And once you know that's sure, then that's one more brick in the building of a great musician. So that but they surprise me. My students surprise me all the time with the things, and I tell them, I want questions. I want you to, you know, I need to know where we are. I can't teach you until I know you, and hopefully this is it's a team effort you do with a student. It's something I love doing.
Oh, that sounds so important and so welcoming to me. I do a lot of writing about things like classical music, and my least favorite phrase is "of course." People will say something like, "Of course, Mozart was a student of Salieri," or what have you. And for a lot of people, that's new information. And I think when we assume something, that's when people start to feel a distance between them and the music. And, you know, I should already know this. I should have already heard this. And so I try to take out "of course" or "as you already know" wherever I can, because we just can't assume anybody knows something that we feel like is familiar.
Yeah, and you know, it's the little things that sometimes are the really important things. I mean, it could be the tiniest thing that you might not think is important, but it could be the thing that kid will take for the rest of their life, and it'll be a beam of light on everything else they do. So you might be, you know, as you say, of course, seeing something that isn't not at all. It happened to me a few times as a child, even as a young adult, you know. And as I say, and then I wanted to say, no, I don't know that, you know, tell me, you know.
And and then you open the door for so many more questions, and the questions become more and more complex, and you've made an environment where those questions are welcome, because you've shown that nothing is too small to ask about or to understand together. I think that sounds like a really healthy environment for a student.
You put it beautifully, Eric.
Thank you. Words are my music. So, okay, I have read that you have played over 80 principal roles in operas and musicals. I would love to know if you've had a favorite role or a memory that you'd like to share with us from that time on the stage.
You know, I'll go back to the Marriage of Figaro, the role I did in Arabic, and I was the first Figaro to do it. Marriage of Figaro is an opera, a rather revolutionary opera about the barber or the servant fighting his master, the count, who's trying to delay his marriage, the barber's marriage, because he wants the girl, you know, he wants Susanna, the girl. And so the opera begins with a wonderful bedroom scene where Figaro is about, the day of his marriage, he's measuring, and he's saying 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot. He's measuring where he's going to put the bed, you know. It's as mundane as that. And I remember doing that in Arabic, and people told me, Raouf, what's this? You're an actor. You're not just a singer. And I said, well, I was measuring a bed, you know, and all that. And they said, and then there's a moment where Figaro is furious against his master, because his master, his wife-to-be tells him that the master was flirting with her. And he says, if you are after a little amusement, you may go dancing, but I'll play the tune. And it's a very strong criticism of the count. And in Egypt, we had a dictatorial system. People told me, how come you sang it with so much passion? And I said, very easy. I just thought of the government we have here. And you know, when Mozart wrote that opera, he wrote it in a time when the French Revolution was about to happen. So it really was a struggle time. So I guess Figaro has to be the opera that comes close to my heart. I also love doing Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof, because it brought together many aspects of my life. The idea of the father struggling, tradition, you're struggling again, you love your daughter, but you believe in tradition, the tension between that. So that was another role I loved in the musical theater side of things.
Can I just say that the passion you have for this subject matter is really infectious, and it just seems like even just having these memories, you just derive a lot of joy from the music you have made in your life and the music that you will help students make in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I never get very far with this question, but when you're not teaching or listening to music, what else fills your life? Everybody just tells me more music that they play or make, but do you have things outside of music that are interesting you these days?
Well, you know, coming from Egypt, I know the food and the kinds of things we have in Egypt. I've been fascinated by creating new recipes out of these wonderful. So I love cooking. In fact, I love making Thai soups, or, you know, curry or something, or an Egyptian thing. And I love cooking for my friends. So, and by the way, cooking is another side of diversity. You know, it's like, you know, bring in a new ingredient, a new flavor, a new smell, you know. So that's a hobby of mine. And I love sailing. Whenever I'm near water, I'll go and see if there's a sailboat that I can go out on. And, you know, and I was known in Egypt as the singing sailor, because by the way, singers and sailors have something in common. They use breath or air, you know. The idea of a boat being pulled along by the natural wind, or a voice being vibrating on a free stream of air. There's a parallel there.
Oh my gosh, Raouf, how beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, is there anything we haven't covered here that you think would be useful for potential students of piano, or possibly of voice in the future, that to know about you or how you approach music or anything like that?
I just come and talk to me, come and ask questions, come and try. What I really believe in is doing you know, a session, a free session where we get to know each other, and I find out what the students is looking for, what their dreams are, what they want to know, and they find out how I teach it. And I always say, you know what, when you during that one session, forgive me if it sounds like I'm baby talking to you. I'm not baby talking to you. I want to find out what you know, because once I know what you know, I'll be able to go to the next step. And building you up as a musician is a great thing. So I welcome students to come. Don't be scared about the music lesson. The music lesson is a chance to grow. And training a musician is, I think, one of the most important things for life, because you train a person to do things with their body. Singers particularly, I mean, they're actually learning how to do something they're doing all the time, the breathing, you don't know. But pianists, they're using their hands, rhythm. So some people say, well, why music? And I say, because it's really showing you a way of doing things. It's a way that will inform everything else you do in your life. If you're a rocket scientist, music is going to be something that will show you the way. you know. So that's why I think I'm so glad we have this amazing center here and focusing on music completely, you know.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time today, Raouf. It has been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Erica.